Hello, everyone. This is your host, Sanjeev Goyal. I'm back with another phenomenal alum of IIT who has done some exceptional work. He's a futurist and thought leader. Let's talk to Debanjan. He's IIT KGP alum, 1990. Pass out, as we say, pass out for different reasons. But we'll talk to him about how he passed out from IIT KGP. Welcome, Debanjan, to our show.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me, Sanjeev.
So, Debanjan, you graduated in 1990 from IIT KGP. Have you even thought of internet at that time?
Well, internet was just coming to IIT at that point. And we had, email gateway, and it was very, very unreliable. In fact, we used to rely more on when sending mails to US universities, for example, the regular mail was a lot more reliable than email. And in fact, we were actually deploying Ethernet throughout the campus.
Wow.
And nobody really believed that this will work well. I mean, I remember there was a friend of mine who was doing a project on the Ethernet, and he used to make me sit in one office on the first floor, and then he will send a message to the second floor, and he will run up to the second floor and call me on phone and say that it's not here yet. So it was.
Just imagine in 30 years where we came. I mean, it's just like a game. Right. It's other way around. Now, snail mail is completely unreliable.
That's right. I don't even check my mail. I mean, I get, the notices from the post office that our mailbox is overflowing because nobody checks it anymore.
That's funny. So, Debanjan, please talk a little bit about your hostel life or anything you would like to share with our audience from your college days.
One of the things I remember, I grew up, of course, in Darjeeling and then close to Calcutta. And I didn't know Hindi very well when I went there. And every Friday, there was the Technology Film Society, which used to show some movies. I mean, there are some Bengali movies, some Hindi movies, some English movies. And I didn't used to go to the Hindi movies because I didn't understand them very well. So my wingmates will tell me that, no, we will explain to you, come with us. So I used to go with them. And what will invariably happen that somebody will crack a joke in the movie, of course, and everybody's laughing. And poor me, I'm trying to understand what the heck happened. And I couldn't figure out. And I was just asking my neighbors, hey, can you explain to me what happens? And they'll tell me, why don't you laugh now? We'll explain to you when you go back to the dorm. So that is something which used to happen very often. Then I remember, the NCC class. I don't know if it is still there or, if it was there in other IITs. So every Wednesday we used to, in the second half, we used to go to NCC class, and nobody liked to go to NCC class. So, typically there's a class of 300 people, and then 30 people will show up, and there are 300 presents are. And these NCC folks who are very, very kind of skeptical that they used to double count, could never make out why they always see 300 people present, but only 30 bodies there. And it was really, really funny. They once took us to some firing range for practice shooting. And the guy standing next to me kind of, pierced through my target. I was really, really happy about it until he realized that he didn't get any credit for it because he was completely out. Once actually somebody took one rifle and was trying to impress the freshmen. We were second year at that time who just came in, showing them the rifle in the dorm. And there was a total manhunt trying to figure out what happened to that rifle. So there's a lot of interesting things. Other thing which is still kind of, I actually don't know whether this happened or this was really a story going around, but it was really, really funny. And one of the electrical lab vivas, which used to be very tough because these professors are very, very tough at that time, at least we used to think so. One of the professors asked one of the students that, how does a DC motor starts? And he started saying, oh. And the professor said, no, stop. And so,
So from, when you were trying to figure out how to send a message from one floor to other floor using the cables and running, to someone almost invented a multi-billion-dollar business around data for Amazon. How did it happen? Tell me a little bit about your journey.
So, I from IIT, I came to University of Maryland to do my PhD, and I kind of realized, I mean, internet was pretty nascent at that time in US also. Netscape was just starting. Mosaic was kind of the state of the art. I
A
don't
big
think
deal.
people now know what those are. So I decided that I should, pursue networking. So that's what I did. And I did my PhD in networking. And by the time I graduated, networking was really, really hot. And in fact, my goal at that time was to become a professor because my father is a professor, my uncles are all professors. And I primarily interviewed in academia, got many interviews, many jobs because it was really, really hot, almost like a bubble in networking era. And I was almost going to University of Michigan at Ann Arbor to become a professor. Then I got picked up by IBM Research because I did a summer job there. And so I went there to work in IBM Research. And probably a month after I joined IBM Research, the Deep Blue bit Kasparov in the chase game. That was kind of the beginning of AI becoming sort of real. People realizing the impact of AI. Anyway, I was in networking for some more years. I actually left IBM and went to a startup, did a startup in optical switching. And then we took the company public. And of course, after that, there was another bubble burst, as you remember, in 2000, 2001.
Yeah.
So I decided to leave networking, came back to IBM, did actually a storage product in storage virtualization. And then I kind of got into networking and analytics because I did a project with the US government, one of the three-letter agencies, doing data analytics for the network traffic. That kind of got me into data analytics. Long story short, after a brief stint, 2 years I actually spent in China on an international assignment for IBM, came back, moved to Bay Area, which I was thinking of doing for a very long time, didn't happen for many reasons, and joined AWS to create a new cloud native database. And, I didn't think that it would be successful, to tell you the truth. When I walked in there, I said, how many people do you have? So, well, we have 20 people. But what do you think you are going to build? So we want to compete with Microsoft, SQL Server, and Oracle. Well, good luck. But, I'll give it a shot. And it turned out to be the most successful project I have ever done. And it became the fastest growing service in the history of AWS, and eventually I
The
ran
cloud,
all the.
actually.
Sorry?
The cloud databases, this is one of the most successful.
It is probably the most successful. I don't know what it is now. It is a multi-billion-dollar product. I, of course, left Amazon in 2019 and went to Google and then ran data analytics, including BigQuery.
Yeah.
So I consider myself really lucky. I mean, I participated
I
in.
disagree with that. Okay, let's talk about
Sorry?
let's talk about it's important for our audience to know.
Right.
1990, sitting in one of the labs of IIT KGP, you were figuring it out how to send the messages. Fast forward 2015 to 2019, roughly, you end up developing the cloud native database.
Right.
It can't be just luck.
Well, one thing I would say, I have never been really super intentional and prescriptive about what I want to do. I kind of, followed my passion that, hey, this looks interesting. I want to do this. And I took risk because, I'm a systems guy, right? I wouldn't call myself an AI person to start with, although, I did very well when I took an AI course, a database course, but that's beside the point. I mean, I was a systems guy. Whenever I saw something interesting, I kind of went in there and tried to do something interesting. And I do think if you, take risk, if you think big, good things happen. Not always. I mean, I told you, the things where I was successful, there are a lot of things in between which were not successful. But those are all kind of building blocks towards what I learned and what eventually, became successful projects.
Makes sense. No, that's Debanjan. So the reason I'm asking you a little bit of question is understanding, because what I learn is in our life, we give a lot of credit to a lot of things. But what I realized that the biggest one single thing I notice of all the friends I have in this, who are very, very successful. And they always come to this word called curiosity. This is the biggest role in their life is, of course, the foundational layer we learn at the IIT days, systematic thinking, all of that plays a major role in our life because of the foundation layer. But curiosity is something which keeps pushing them, makes things like you were trying to send maybe like 2 KB packet in 90s. Now you are talking about terabytes of data running on the cloud native database. But it's just
right.
The curiosity you had that continue to excel in creating some amazing possibilities and solutions for people.
I totally agree. I mean, especially, a field like ours, right? I mean, you have to learn, you have to be curious because things change so fast. I mean, most of the things, as you said, I mean, they are foundational in IIT or even in PhD, but most of the things I do today are nothing to do with what I learned when I was in school. These are things, I learned on the job. These are things I learned from talking to people. These are things I learned by doing things myself. And I do think, our field gives us the opportunity to learn new things on the job and be successful with it because we are at the cutting edge of it. We are defining what the new era is going to be, right? I mean, it's really, really exciting. I mean, even before the cloud native database, I mean, I was actually building the world's largest optical switch when I used to work in Telium. This is a startup out of Bell Labs and Bell Core, which I joined along with my friends. And we had the world's largest optical switch with, this was in 2000, 128 10 terabit links with long range lasers. That was kind of a fabulous thing to build also. I mean, compared to sending this, Ethernet packet between floors in 10 years, we have moved from that to really, really big optical switches.
That's fascinating. So let's talk fast forward. We are in 2023 now. The global population has changed dramatically. We all know it is going to expand. We all know the size of the data is growing like crazy. We talk about AI, but to me, it feels a lot of time is I look back, it's 50 or 30 years ago, we had no idea how internet is going to play in our lives. Don't you think AI is at a place where we're still figuring it out? Where are we and where are we going? We're trying to define a lot of things, but what do you think? What is your take on overall situation of the AI today?
Yeah, I mean, I actually agree with you. I think AI in many ways is like software or internet, right? I mean, it's not one thing. It's going to be super pervasive and it's going to be kind of embedded and integrated and used in pretty much everything that we do. Every business transaction, every human interaction will have, somehow related to AI, right? And we are still scratching the surface, in my view. Most people are still kind of, talking about AI. Everyone you talk to, every company or everyone, they say that they are AI enabled or AI powered. I think a lot of these are not kind of very deep, right? And one of the reasons I came to DataRobot was actually trying to take AI and make it useful to businesses and enterprises, which kind of excited me that how can you take AI and not very complicated AI, I would call simple machine learning, and use that for forecasting or intelligent supply chain management or asset pricing or predicting delays in shipment and things like that. I mean, even those are not very widespread right now. And of course, Chat GPT has changed everything in the last few weeks. And to me, it is almost like an iPhone moment, right? I mean, everybody understood that AI is, something novel and powerful, but nobody could kind of feel what it could be. And now I think there is a generational knowledge about what AI could be. I mean, I was in a Morgan Stanley investor conference last week and talked to every investor, and they asked me about where I think AI is moving and generative AI is going to impact. But the funny thing is, on the way back, my Uber driver was asking me the same thing. What do you think about ChatGPT? So, it requires more. So it requires moment like this where people wake up and say that, hey, I need to be serious about using AI. And I get calls from customers and partners and everybody. Everybody is now thinking, well, I'm telling the board, I'm telling my company, I'm telling my customers that we are AI-driven company, but we are not, right? So what is that we need to do in order to make AI part of the application stack or part of the business processes that I have? And that's what I'm really, really excited about.
Yeah, that's fascinating, actually. And, on one note, being lived through, just like you, the era when we didn't even have connectivity, even forget about internet, even the proper network connection within 2 floors of the building. Today, we have more power in a mobile device than we used to have in supercomputers in 80s.
That's right.
Right. So the world has evolved.
That's
Transaction processing is happening at a much faster pace. Semiconductor, the whole notion of the Moore's law, we have defied it long time ago. Now we are still looking for how do we even build better quality? Maybe possibly we need different materials. So where do you see really opportunities for our next generation, or what are areas? Because when I think about it, as a so-called leader, for us, we need to start talking about what is possible in future. So one area I would like to love your take is on material science, because I personally, based on the data I have gathered and read, material science seems like a space needs to evolve, because we haven't made any exponential changes in last 30 years. We have done a tremendous work, but we haven't made any quantum leap in that space, which is very critical.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I don't see kind of anything happening there. I mean, I'm not an expert in material science, so it's probably a leap for me to say that. But I mean, I worked with a lot of semiconductor
talk in terms of the data processing. Talk in terms, because now we are talking about terabytes of data processing on the device. Because when you talk about AI, I may have terabyte of images on my phone. I would like all those to be processed and give me something more interesting, right?
Yeah. AI, by the way, I do think is going to kind of have a new round of innovation across every layer of the stack. If you look at AI layer, I'll kind of, grossly simplify it. I mean, I see 3 layers. And one is kind of the vertical application layer that people are going to build with various different types of apps. Then there is kind of a platform layer, which you can think of, equivalent to a software CI/CD layer, which will be used to build and deploy and retrain and monitor these models, right? And the layer below that is the infrastructure layer, which is, especially the CPUs and GPUs and TPUs and the hardware accelerators that we will need in large numbers in order to build that whole platform of generative AI or deep learning, whatever have you, right? Now, if you look at the application layer, there are actually a whole bunch of generative AI companies which are already around. And they do things like, for example, creating, videos using avatars, right? So if you are, on a low budget video production, whether it is a documentary or even a film in sometimes, I mean, you can actually use these platforms to build it with much less than what you need to spend in doing production. There is, of course, new generation of search applications which are coming out, where it is going to, instead of listing all the things that you might be interested in, it is going to explain to you your question in a lot more human, understandable way. There are, for example, virtual try-ons that people are doing using, some garment and the person and see how it looks, right? So there's a whole bunch of these things which are already around. There are, for example, writing assistant, and application that summarizes, for example, legal briefs or a doctor's recommendation or prescription, etc., etc. So those things, there will be more and more of that. It's kind of difficult to say, it's like 5,000 apps. You don't know which one is going to be the killer app and is going to be successful. So it's not easy to build a company in that space. So the next layer below that is really, all of these companies will need an infrastructure or a platform where they need to build these models, right? A model is nothing but, data plus some code. And all the CI/CD infrastructure we have seen kind of develop is now becoming more and more common in AI lifecycle management. That's, by the way, what Data Robot does. And our thesis is that, look, I mean, in California gold rush, not too many people found gold, but there are a lot of people who sold pots and pans to the gold diggers who actually became very rich. So it's kind of an easier bet to take. But I mean, of course, it's harder because you're not showing direct value. And then below that is that, if you look at GPUs, they're really, really expensive. They're hard to get. I mean, NVIDIA, for example, always kind of backlogged in terms of the demand. We could never get enough GPUs from them, right? And, Google built TPUs. There are other companies, many of them got funded who are building these processors optimized for deep learning and, hardware accelerators optimized for deep learning. I think there is going to be a lot of funding in that area in order to build an infrastructure that people can build, which can, democratize the use of deep learning and generative AI, because it takes tens of millions, sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars to build these foundational models. And that's really, really expensive, right? So, and what you asked, I think, I haven't seen, and I have to admit that I'm not kind of very deeply tied to the layer below, which is the material science, that if there is a breakthrough discovery there, room temperature semiconductor or room temperature superconductors and, new carbon nanotubes or whatever people talk about. I mean, I have heard about many of these things over the last 20 years, but I haven't seen kind of huge step function improvement in our materials, except for, just taking the size down and improving the conductivity. So there is a potential there, but I haven't seen any breakthrough that I know of, but that may be my own, lack of exposure to that area.
So, Debanjan, let's do fast forward 10 years from now. What you think AI is going to contribute? And I'll give you some specific areas where I would like to talk about. It's healthcare. Will doctors be as relevant or more or less in 10 years from now? Or when we talk about policy making, how the policy making look like 10 years from now? Or even the education, how the education look like in 10 years from now?
My view is that I always think human ingenuity is going to give us an edge over anything that's artificially intelligent, right? Even if you think about Chat GPT and everything else that people are excited about, it's good as an assistant. It's good as something which is not business critical or health critical, right? But, I still don't think I can rely on Chat GPT to give me correct answer. I mean, if I'm looking for something fun, it gives me something which does not have a huge impact on my investment decision or my healthcare decision, I'm okay. But for AI to be trusted, you have to believe in the output that it is producing. And I think for a long time to come, there has to be a human in the loop when you're talking about critical decision making that we are going to engage AI in, right? And more, what I would think is going to happen, that people are going to be more productive. People are going to be, more accurate in their decision making using AI to assist them rather than replacing them, right? Now, does that mean, not there would be jobs which probably will be substituted by AI? I mean, I do think there are potentials for doing that. I mean, I would think, for example, my son is trying to use Chat GPT to write at least the first draft of his essays, right? And I think, a lot of people are probably going to use, for example, in paralegal jobs and things like that, creating the fast draft from AI. So those kind of things are going to happen. And so the major kind of obstacle in AI is really, can you trust the output that you get? And that actually is a function of how critical is your decision to the business, to your health, to other important things. And for those cases, I think there has to be a heavy dose of regulation that you need to use. I mean, you have seen in ChatGPT or Bard in that your output is only as good as the data it was trained on. So if it was trained on data from 2021, I mean, it does not know about what happened in 2022, right? And also, I mean, when you hand everything over to AI, it is making automatic decision and say it is giving loans to people, right? And you don't know whether it is making the right decision or not. You don't want another bank failure because your AI agent actually gave loans to wrong set of people. Or it could be other way around. I mean, denied loan to people based on, biased data, which created decision bias for, related to race or gender or whatever have you, right? So I think that's going to be a big thing in the next couple of years, where we have to increase our trust but verify in order to make AI part of enterprise business applications or critical healthcare decisions and things like that.
So my theory is very simple, Debanjan. And let's talk about healthcare too. And I'm basing this on the research me and my team has done so far. Healthcare is the biggest problem today, if I see it, because there is specialties and expertise are in pockets. A country like India, when we have population of 1.3 to 1.4 billion people, we don't have enough doctors to treat every single person accurately and appropriately. In fact, even a lot of symptoms goes unnoticed because the doctors are not even thinking, or they are cycling patients every 5 minutes. So what I personally believe, and that's my belief, that if somehow we can figure it out, how all the medical studies can be digitized in a shape and form that systems like generative AI can provide better responses to even average Joe. So when they are having a conversation with the doctors, they can have a better conversation, number one. When the doctor is advising, he has more data, more in concise form to take some decisions based on it. I'm not saying that the AI can replace the medical doctor or AI can do surgeries. Possibly, yes, because Da Vinci robots have shown that you can do surgery at remote places. And people have done it. It is response time issues, right? Which we are trying to solve with the data issues we just had a few minutes ago. But the big thing is, I feel today I am able to do a better job with the AI than having a doctor, because it's very, very hard for doctors to look through my last 10 years of reports, all the different medications I have taken.
I do think that's going to happen. And in fact, that's already happening. I mean, when I was in China, we are actually running a trial of cancer screening in remote location using essentially AI, and then getting the doctor involved if there is kind of escalation that needs to be handled, right? And I think those kind of use cases are going to become more and more common. And I think it is also true that, in developing countries is probably going to move faster than the developed world, where the regulation is a lot stricter and stringent to take, more time because of privacy and other reasons, right? And if the choice between not going to a doctor and having an AI agent evaluating you, you will take the, next best offer, right?
I'll give you an example. I gave a talk last month in Davos on diabetes. So you may not be aware, there are 1 million plus people every single year goes through amputation because of the delayed diagnosis of diabetes. So it's not anything else. It's just the early detection could have just saved this amputation and lives and dialysis. We are talking about just 1 million people every single year. And I looked at the technologies around and I said, bullshit, $300 for a test? This is crap. If we are going to take $300 to take a basic test for diabetes, how many people can afford it, even a country like America? Not very many. There are amputations happening in New York, in Queens. Can you believe that? And I believe using this technology called RPPG. So I did a lot of research, just reminds me of IIT days. If you don't know the answer, you go to the library and sift through every single freaking document out there or research paper out there. And I find this beautiful technology, RPPG. It's a light sensing technology. Using your phone device or any camera, it can give you a lot of attributes. And if we combine it with AI, we may be able to predict. Actually, I'm 100% confident it is predictable just with this light technology. With
I believe so. I do totally agree with you, by the way. I mean, I think there is a lot of potential. I think there is always this kind of healthy tension between, how kind of deregulated you want to make it versus how much of regulation is good. And I think that boundary is also going to be different in developing world versus developed world. And I think there is a lot of opportunity in places like India and China to leapfrog, AI, because in some ways there is more data available. People are willing to take a little bit more risk, and for a good reason. And I think that may actually be a boon in disguise.
I mean, 400,000 applications every single year in India. 400.
That's right.
And so what is the value of a life? It's huge. But the reason I'm making this point, and it's for our audience especially, is even in the healthcare, it's not going to be one AI going to solve everything. I believe there will be multiple solutions and multiple AIs kind of systems we need to solve some specific problem. Even drug discovery, you and me both know it is extensively used now. How do you explain it? And we know in COVID, it was used extensively to do all the research and to consolidate all the data set. So it's a phenomenal time. I think we are just on scratching the surface, or maybe we are just the iceberg.
It is in the inflection. Even simple things. I mean, hospitals, for example, use our platform to build models to figure out the no-shows and the readmission probability of patients, so that they can direct them to the right care, so that they don't come back to the hospital, which is, it's happening today, right? A very low tech, I would say. I mean, nothing related to kind of drug discovery and disease identification. I do think you are absolutely right. We are at an inflection point. I do think, as excited I'm about ChatGPT by itself may not be the biggest thing, but it is that iPhone moment where everybody wakes up and say, oh my God, this is something I need to use. And, and AI has arrived.
Actually, if I may say, Debanjan, it may not be even iPhone. I think it's just a mobile phone moment. It says, oh, I can talk without wires. So I think that's people are saying ChatGPT, in my opinion, it is just, oh, okay, we can talk without wires. So, okay, the computer can do something really without me asking.
That's right.
Or telling computer what to do. It's just that moment I feel. And I mean, I look around us, there are so many opportunities, so many problems we have. Today we can solve with AI, like just expanding it further. Analyzing last 10, 20 years of our health data and providing us more of an understanding of what kind of supplements you should take, what kind of lifestyle changes you should make, and really making it better so we have better quality of life. I mean, that's a big one. And there are a lot of amazing things happening around that. But anyway, I get really excited when I look at the AI and when I talk.
This is really exciting time.
This is amazing time. We are living in the
It is really amazing time.
So,
and I feel lucky that, I've been part of two revolutions. I mean, one is the internet revolution in 1990s and 2000, and now this data and AI revolution of today. And I'm really, really excited about it.
So let's fast forward 2050, and I'm going to push a little bit. If I ask you to make 5 predictions, what will be those? 2050.
I would think AI will essentially be part of everything that we do and everything that we build. People may not know it. It's going to be really, really pervasive. I do think, some of the businesses that I see are data businesses. Let's say, I'll come to healthcare for a second. I mean, we talked about that. Let's say financial services. Right? I mean, it's mostly a data-driven business. I mean, a lot of things that we do can actually be automated.
Yeah.
right? And we can probably make better decisions than human decisions that we make, right? So a lot of that, I think, would be all automated. I do think manufacturing and industrials will have huge dependence on AI. I'm seeing that already today in terms of, for example, preventive maintenance and um, and all the different work that people need to schedule. Doing that in a way which can be done before things actually break down could be hugely effective. I do think in retail and business, this can be hugely impactful. I mean, you don't have to, I mean, now we don't need to go anywhere, but, still, if you want to kind of try something out, it's difficult to do that without going to a store. It could be completely virtual.
Yeah.
Right. I think our communication is also going to go to new levels. Today, we consume a lot of AI generated material. I think we are going to generate a lot of this material ourselves, right? I mean, everybody will look like a movie star, maybe, I don't know.
So it almost feels like we are living in the era of hyper personalization. We are all so unique. We are so amazing. We are all Instagram star. It's fascinating world we are living in.
That's right. So I don't think I'm kind of I was actually thinking about one of the questions that you asked me, that who do I want to go back to and interview from history. The person I want to go back to is actually Jules Verne. I was fascinated by things that he wrote, which came true 80 years, 90 years after he wrote them. And it would be fascinating to see what he thinks, or he would think about the future, 50 years from now. I don't think I'm imaginative enough to envision that, but there are people who probably will envision that better.
True. So, couple of things came out of the discussions I have had in my past. So, number one, I find is we will be living healthier. Number one. Number two is we may have to really rethink this model of income, that how it works, because it's going to change some shape or form. I don't know what is the right answer, but it's going to change. Our policy making has to change by 2050, because our policy making cannot be based on one country alone. It has to be on global policy. So we will be more interconnected than we are today. Because today, US makes some policy, India makes some policies. There can be a lot of challenges in between, but we have to think through by 2050, because we will be far more connected. And the last one really is around energy. Energy is going to be the biggest, either a challenge or we may solve the problem by that time, that how are we going to live in future. These are some of the areas I see tremendous growth will happen based on my previous conversation and the work we have done.
So, if I kind of take a contrarian view on that, right? If you look at the world's problem today, it's actually number one is deglobalization, right? So building those kind of global policies is probably going to be challenging, although I do agree with you. I mean, this technology is kind of transcends country boundaries, right? The second thing that we have is kind of the demographic problem that we have. I mean, it's not so much of an issue in India, but if you look at even China, especially in developing countries, the birth rate is going down significantly, and that's going to create a huge problem with respect to all the social security schemes and getting people to actually do the job. So automation, of course, is definitely going to be important, but it's also going to kind of create a different kind of stress in the social security system that various different countries have built.
Yeah.
The third thing, I think, is the decarbonization that's going on. I'm actually very hopeful. And like the way when I came to US, I mean, the long distance calls used to take a lot of money. And people predicted 20 years from now, the long distance call is going to be free. I actually think, I mean, 20, 30 years from now, energy will be virtually free, not free, but virtually free. Right? I mean, with your solar panels, with wind and many other energy sources, I actually feel very good about that. And the other one, by the way, I think is water. Water is becoming a hugely constrained natural resource. And I think we are going to go heavily towards this desalinization and making water available in a plentiful way, which, by the way, I mean, if you go to Gulf countries, they are already doing at a pretty impressive scale.
Yeah, at large scale. But the cost is the issue. I mean, we all know.
That's right.
It's the technology is there. So yes.
Well, I mean, it's a very energy intensive endeavor, but I mean, they have plenty of sunlight, so you can use that energy to desalinize. It's pretty interesting. But
hey, thank you so much, Debanjan, for your time. I love it. I'm sure we can talk for hours about a lot of things. Maybe next time we should just talk about the health, really how AI is impacting. And I love to learn more about what you are doing and your organization is doing in future.
Absolutely.
Please do share your comments, feedback, or anything you would like our audience to do. I will love your feedback, and I'm sure they will love to hear from you. If they want to reach you, how can they find you?
Debanjan@yahoo.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Debanjan. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. You too. It was great talking to you.